Life is getting a little bit more expensive in the city of Toronto. Folks, Toronto homeowners and renters are in for a big surprise after Olivia Chow has indicated that a huge property tax increase is coming and how this hike could propel rents to go higher. We're going to cover all this on episode 164 of the Wise Old Owl Show. Thank you very much for everybody tuning in today. It's been all over the press. The mayor of the city of Toronto has announced that her modest property tax increase has become a record amount charged to the city of Toronto, upwards of 10.5%, and she's blackmailing the government of Canada if she doesn't get any additional assistance for all the refugee settlements and costs. It could be upwards of 16.5% increase to the citizens and homeowners of Toronto. Folks, she ran on a campaign of a modest increase to property taxes. And all of a sudden, we're facing the largest increase in the history of Toronto, and it's double digits. You can't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. We have not had a core services review in the city of Toronto since the days of Rob Ford. That's correct. Rob Ford was the last mayor to do a core services review, and that's going through every department and seeing what efficiencies there are, what costs are available to be cut. No mayor has done that. They've just simply put it on the hands of the residents, and the reality is this is what you get. What should have been done years ago is now being done all in one fell swoop when Torontonians are being just hammered by every angle. Carbon taxes, cost of living, borrowing costs, like they're facing every hammer to the head. And this is going to be another blow to the city of Toronto. Now, what's going to be interesting is this additional 6% that the mayor is looking to get from the federal government to support all the refugee services and settlements. So these are all the strain that is being put on the shelter system in the city of Toronto. As you know, there's refugees all over the place. They're in hotels, they're in encampments, they're in churches, they're everywhere, and they need support. And the federal governments are not coming to the table. And what's hilarious is that we have 25 sitting MPs that have seats in the city of Toronto. Where are they? Will they come to the aid of the citizens that they represent, their constituents in the city of Toronto? Will they be doing their part to lobby for the city of Toronto to provide this additional resource to the city and help out this mayor who pretty much is just going to jam Toronto residents with more and more tax hikes? Now, many outside Toronto are thinking, well, you know what, they deserve it. They have been paying low taxes for the longest time, and now's their time to pay up. Sure, makes sense. But the reality is Toronto is the engine of the country, and it should be given some extraordinary benefits to make sure it thrives. So, you know, we'll see where that lands, but we definitely are seeing a nightmare scenario for homeowners who are faced with an additional cost. This extraordinary increase to property taxes provides an opportunity for landlords to request an increase beyond the 2.5% limit that guidelines suggest that they can only increase rent by. And I'll explain. In the act itself, a landlord can ask for an increase beyond the guideline if there's an extraordinary tax levied against them that can be passed on to tenants. So folks, this is going to not only hurt homeowners, it will pound tenants. Experts and economists are predicting that rents are going to surge upwards of 7% in some cases because of the cost of living and these extraordinary record hikes on the property tax front by this mayor. This mayor, who is a proponent for tenants, doesn't even realize that the act itself gives landlords the ability to increase beyond the guideline in extraordinary cases. And when you see double-digit hikes and the highest ever rental hike in the history of the City of Toronto, that would be deemed extraordinary. And by definition, in the Act, extraordinary means 50% above the guideline. So if the guideline's 2.5% and a 50% increase beyond that is 1.25, you're at 3.75%. Anything above 3.5% in property tax hike can be deemed extraordinary, and that landlord does have the right to appeal and request an additional increase beyond the guideline. So folks, shit's gonna get nasty in the City of Toronto, and costs are gonna go up for those who even think they're protected by the Landlord-Tenant Board guideline limit. So tighten the chin strap, tighten those helmets, because it's gonna get bumpy on both sides of the equation here. The homeowners and tenants. It is going to be absolutely ugly. Now, one thing that's driving this is immigration. And as most of you know, this immigration file is something that just eats away at my core. Today at the Economic Club, Chief Economist of the TD Bank, Beta Currency, stated we screwed up on the immigration file. She basically indicated that Trudeau botched this immigration surge beyond belief. It is an actual shit show. And there's a great article in the Globe and Mail that indicates that experts 2 years ago mentioned that this surge in immigration is going to cause some major damage to the economy, the infrastructure, and cities, because they can't handle the influx of the immigration increase that they projected 2 years ago. And guess what? You know what the government did? They didn't give a shit. Who cares? Experts? We know more. And look at where we are now. It is an absolute shit show, folks. Absolute disaster. So it's going to be really interesting where everything lands with this. I am really interested to see where the consultation is going to be had. And, you know, this government, before they hand over any money to the City of Toronto, they better ask where the money's going. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if it's to change street signs from Dundas to something else and change Dundas Square to some name I can't even pronounce, like, that is not where you should be spending money, folks. Like, this is getting to the point where get rid of the fucking bike lanes in every street corner. Put them down the corridors that need them. But as far as putting bike lanes everywhere and these abstract pieces of metal in the middle of the roads that are blocking sewers and stuff like that, it's a disaster. There's no rhyme or reason of all this. We need to get back to basics. What are the services we want to provide our citizens of the city, and what could we afford? And you know what? We can't deal with everything. We got to pick our poisons, and we got to make sure we deliver the core services and get rid of the fluff, because there's too much fluff. We need to start finding efficiencies. And you know, I've been dealing with a few developers lately that are doing a lot of infill projects. The amount of red tape to get permits is astounding. They're being bounced around from department to department. These assessors aren't in on Mondays and Fridays. It only seems like they work 3 days a week. They all work from home. They need supervisors to review. They're just dealing with emails. Nobody's talking to anybody. Get everybody back in the fucking office and get to work and issue the permits in a more reasonable amount of time. Like, it's really frustrating these developers. It's frustrating these contractors trying to do these infill projects and wanting to just get the work done. It's amazing to me how it's so difficult to issue simple permits. And they're hiring all these newbies that don't know what they're doing, needing supervisors to approve things. They can't really do anything on their own. It seems like everybody's in training. Everybody's in training to do what used to be done in a more reasonable way. Like, the city is just shut down, and we gotta get back to basics, folks. Go to work, do the work in a timely fashion, pick up the phone, fuck this email stuff that nobody could find you, and get the job done. Please, City of Toronto, get your act together. Help these folks out. The longer it takes them to get their permits, the longer and more amount of money they're going to have to borrow funds for. And it's getting expensive at these rates. People are pulling out their hair. They want to get projects done. They want to get into the home. They want to house people. Help them. Do your job. So please, whoever runs the city permit department, get your shit together. Get to work. Tell people to come to work and do their work in their desk so you can help them instead of chasing emails, walking dogs, running errands, chasing kids. Get to work. Everybody needs to increase productivity. Get at it. So there's my rant today. So with that, I want everybody to put on their helmets, tighten the chin straps. We're going to go into the Q&A, and we're going to take a couple questions. Okay, so let's get in here. Based on what you hear, what do you foresee the Bank of Canada overnight rate to be in Q3? The prediction business is very difficult, and I think we're in the higher for longer situation, and I don't think we're going to see much relief when it comes to the Bank of Canada reducing rates. So what I will say is I think the interest rate, the Bank of Canada overnight interest rate, will be closer to 5 than 4 in Q3. So I don't see a lot of movement downwards. I think we're going to, right now it sits at 5. I think we're going to be closer to that number than we are going to be closer to 4. And I'll leave it at that. What would be the best option for mortgage renewal? 5-year fixed or 2-3-year variable? If we start seeing rates move in the next 12 to 24 months, the 5-year may not be the best option. We're really seeing a shift of people looking at 1 and 2, 3-year terms, fixed rates, or the variable option. The variable option comes with risk. You have to pay a higher rate now, unfortunately. The reality, though, is the variable option gives you an interesting convertibility option. You have the ability at any point in time to convert your variable mortgage to a fixed rate mortgage. So what you want to do is you want to consider that option if you have the stomach for paying a higher rate early on. And it could be a while, it could be 12 months. Or you stick with a 1-year term and try to see if that 1-year period gives you that opportunity to maybe lock into something a little bit cheaper. But the reality is the 5-year I still think is a little bit high. I like the 2- and 3-year term, and I am getting more and more folks considering the variable and floating that option to convert at some point in time. The key, though, is you have to convert with a lender that's going to give you their best rate at time of conversion. There's some lenders, especially these branch networks, they're not necessarily going to give you the best rate. You know, you're going to have to renegotiate your rate at time of conversion. And I don't know if you really want to do that. I think what you want to do is you want to speak to your local mortgage professional, give our office a call if you want our help, and get with a lender that's always posting their best rates on their fixed rates. That way, when you do convert, you're getting their best rate all the time. You're not having to worry about what that branch decides you're going to get. So always remember that conversion option is key, but you want to make sure you don't have to renegotiate, because once you're in there, you're stuck. If you want to leave, it's a 3-month penalty. So you want to be very, very careful how you handle that relationship. So deal with a lender that's going to always give you their best rate at conversion. And usually it's the monolines that do that. So reach out to your mortgage professional, your mortgage agent. They'll help you through these options, hopefully, and make sure you're dealing with somebody with some experience that have been around the block. I've been doing this a very long time. Sadly, I've been doing it longer than an amortization schedule, and that's an extended amortization of 30 years. I've been doing this a very long time, so deal with somebody with experience, someone who's been around the block and has a full source of lenders to deal with, okay?